Gently close your eyes. Your fingers interlaced and placed in front. Your breathing normal. Your back, your neck and head erect. Your body is relaxed. Next, attend to your mind. Stay vacant of all thoughts. Let the thoughts come into your mind and gently die away. Try not to identify with those thoughts. Be aware of your breathing. Let us chant the mantra Om, followed by the invocatory prayer. Sahana vavatu, sahanam bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu mavit vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. Let us chant 10 shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verses 11 to 20. Shri Bhagavanuvāca Ashocyananvashocastvam Prajñāvādāmscha bhāshase Gatasu nagatasumscha Nanushocanti panditaha Natvevaham jatu nasam Natvam neme janadhipaha Nachaiva na bhavishyamaha Sarve vayamatah param Dehinosmin yatha dehe Kaumaram yauvanam jara Tata dehantara praptihi Dhirastatra namuhyate Matra sparshastu kaunteya Shitoshna sukha dukkadaha आगमापायिनो नित्याः तां स्थितिक्षस्व भारत यं हि न व्यतयन्त्येते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोऽमृतत्वाय कल्पते न सतो विद्यते भावः न भावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः अविनाशि तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततम् विनाशमव्ययस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हति अन्तवन्त इमे देहाः नित्यस्योक्तः शरीरिणः अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य तस्माद्युध्यस्व भारत ययेनं वेति हन्तारं यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ न विजानीतः नायं हन्ति न हन्यते न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे You want a recap of what we discussed last class? In the previous session, we discussed that Atman, the self, functioning through the physical body, becomes the physical personality. Atman functioning through the mind becomes the emotional personality, feeling various emotions. Atman functioning through the gross intellect becomes the intellectual personality, thinking about thoughts and ideas in the terrestrial world. However subtle the subject may be, field of inquiry may be, when Atman, the self, functioning through the subtle intellect, becomes the spiritual personality, contemplating upon the reality, the transcendental. So we said a human being has 4 different personality layers: physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. At one time, the person, see, a human being is a composite unit. of Atman and 4 different personality layers. At one time, the person is identifying with the physical body. It is a complex situation, all working at one time. Then how is it that, we are assuming 4 different personality layers? Is it at 4 different times? So if you start analyzing that way, you will become extremely confused. So when a person is thinking, does it mean that physical body is not required there? Is it mutually exclusive? When the person is feeling emotions, do you mean to say the mind alone, the emotional personality alone can feel, the physical body is not required? You can't say that way. You can't argue that way, because the physical personality is the face of the personality, the outer personality, the external personality is what is contacting the world. The mind by itself, the thoughts and ideas, the intellect by itself, gross or subtle, is not directly contacting the world. The mind, the emotions, the likes, dislikes, etc., is contacting the world through the physical body. So it is like, one unit, all functioning at one time. But for practical purposes, we are saying that physical personality, when it is functioning, when I am talking, what happens? When I am seeing, what happens? When I am hearing, what happens? When I say what happens, the choice is there. What is the choice here? A human being alone enjoy this choice. What is the choice here? So when I see a color and form, I get carried away by the color and form. So I have a choice of either focusing my attention on the color and form, get carried away and become more and more extroverted, or what is making me, or focus on what is making me see the color and form and become an introverted person. So I'm hearing sound, whatever, gross music, subtle music, Carnatic, classical, whatever it is, jazz music, rock music, pop music, whatever it is, vocal, instrumental, any music. The choice is, either I focus on that sound, I get completely lost, carried away, involved, attached, or what is making me hear that sound. Same way, that smell, taste, touch, etc. I can go to the extent of saying, see, this is what that, spirituality is, where a person, see, we discussed the 5 senses here. Eyes, ears, nose. Eyes are seeing color and form. The ear is hearing sound. Nose is smelling. Tongue is tasting. Touch, the physical, the skin is touching. The mind is feeling various emotions. Intellect is thinking. So these 5 senses are part of the one half of the physical body, the organs of perception. The second aspect is the organs of action, ability to speak, organ of speech, hands, limbs, organ of procreation and organ of evacuation. If we extend this concept to the extremity, even that person who is enjoying the senses, sensual pleasure, again there is a choice. The choice is either I get carried away by the senses, the sensual pleasure, or what is making me feel, what is making me, go through that experience. The choice is yours. That is why in Vedanta, even that sensual act is beautifully, it can be converted into worship. Worship doesn't mean only at the place of worship. In temple, any place. So every action, every emotion, every intellection can be converted into worship. Then even that sensual activity is also converted into worship. So you don't have to feel bad by getting into that sensual act that you will be an extroverted person. It is part and parcel of life. You don't have to feel ashamed, you don't have to feel bad about it. But where lies the thought? I am not advocating sensuality here. Since we are on the topic, I am just elaborating that. Theodore Tilton, in the poem there, Even This Shall Pass Away, beautifully talks about mortal flesh must come to clay, even this shall pass away. He's talking about a monarch, a king, married, lying on marriage bed. And he's lying with his, spouse there. At that time, he's talking about this, the subtlest concept. Why does the person get so carried away by the sensual pleasure? We're talking about, I think in plant kingdom it is pollination, if I'm correct. Animal kingdom, they mate. Human kingdom, we also mate, we procreate. Why is it that those who have that, sensual desire get so carried away? Because, friends, all the five senses are in play, in action. Since all the five senses are in action, a person gets the maximum ecstasy. So, no human being is happy with the limited happiness. We want infinite happiness. Therefore, we want to increase the quantum of contact. And it so works that more the contact, more frequent the contact is, the person gets neutralized to sensual pleasure, any happiness for that matter. Instead of happiness increasing, the happiness slowly decreases, dips, and then ultimately upon contact, sensual contact, the person doesn't derive any happiness. The same thing holds good for an alcoholic, a chain smoker, an addict. We talk about saturation in physics. Here we talk about neutralization of senses. Since you asked what we discussed last class, we discussed the 4 different personality layers: physical, emotional, intellectual and spiritual. And The spark is there in everyone. A person can identify with this spark at age 6, or a person may not identify with this spark within at age 60 also. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam. Repeated birth, repeated death, repeatedly lying in mother's womb. Exceedingly wonderful, the samsara. Alas, alas, nobody is interested in Brahman, in reality. Say Shankara and Bhajagovinda. So to come back to this discussion here, the self functioning through the physical body. The physical body consists of organs of perception and organs of action. Organs of perception are 5 in number, organs of action are 5 in number. The 10 senses. When the self function through the organs of perception, we become the perceiver, perceiving the sense objects. So the eyes see the color and form. The fleshy eyes do not see by itself. The mind, through this eye, fleshy eye, organ eye, see the sense, the color and form, stimuli. Beg your pardon. The mind by itself do not perceive the thought preceding it, the vasana preceding it. The vasana by itself cannot see. Atman, through the vasana, through the mind, through the senses, perceive the color and form. The ear hear sound. So there is a mind, the vasana, then the Atman. You go backwards. So the organs of, perception, with the organs of perception, a person becomes a perceiver, perceiving sense objects. With the organs of action, a person becomes an actor, performing action. So the physical body assumes a perceiver and an actor. The self, functioning through the mind, becomes the feeler, feeling various emotions. Greed. A person has attained an object. A person has attained means like an object. A person is married to, wedded to another human being. The object, traditionally, when we're talking about greed here, wealth. So when that wealth, no human being is happy with that limited wealth. A person wants more and more. the more wealthiest person, the richest person wants little more riches. On the other hand, he may give, he may not give, but he wants more and more. There's no end to it. Swami Ramatirtha talking about the snares of 99, the story there. A person was happy with, contented with rupees 99. He had a house full of guests, extremely happy. The moment a person goes to sleep, falls off to sleep, starts snoring. Suddenly a thought came, like any cricketer is not happy with the score 99. Batsman or batswoman, I don't know whether it is the right word, batswoman, woman batsman, again batsman. Wanted that extra one run. Same way this person wanted one more rupee to make it a whole number, a complete number, 100. But does not stop with that extra 1 rupee, now comes to 199. Again the happiness is there for some time, again unhappiness sets in. Looking for the 200. It goes on, it never ends. A person becomes fatigued. All the happiness a person had with rupees 99 was lost. He was able to sleep on the floor with his hand as his pillow. Now the person is lying in a water bed, a villa. He has purchased an island. He says everything is like a dungeon. I read an article, I think even Swamiji has mentioned it somewhere, Swami Parsarthi has mentioned it somewhere, wealth fatigue syndrome. The wealthiest, the richest, go through that syndrome. It's like a disease. So the perceiver, perceiving sense objects, actor, performing various actions, both form the physical personality. With the help of the mind, a person becomes the feeler, feeling various emotions. And now the self, with the help of what do you call the gross intellect, becomes the thinker, thinking on thoughts of the world, the terrestrial world. A person working in the terrestrial world, should I be a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, is also a type of thinking. Should I be a monthly salaried person or should I start business? Should I be a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian? Get married or stay single? Produce children, 1, 2, etc. How many? This is also type of thinking. The person who is doing research in a lab, research and development on a subtle subject, that is also thinking. The field of operation may be very subtle, but still it is part of the terrestrial world. Therefore, the person is still using the gross intellect, and hence he or she becomes a thinker, employing all the thoughts of the world. So the feeler is a separate one through the mind, and now there is a thinker. And the last one is the self functioning through the subtle intellect becomes the contemplator, contemplating on the thoughts of reality, the transcendental. Is there life beyond this terrestrial world? I'm not talking about life on Mars. Is there life after death? Discriminating between terrestrial and transcendental, that which is passing, impermanent, and that which is permanent. Thinker does experiment and find out water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, milk boiling at so and so degrees Celsius. A contemplator does contemplation on who is behind fixing 100 degrees Celsius as the boiling point of water. Who has fixed the distance between? Who has fixed the distance between sun and earth? Imagine if the entire solar, all the planets, if they are a little closer towards the sun, what will happen? In summer, Hyderabad is, India. In summer, April, May, June, extremely hot. All those countries, cities which are near the equator, unbearable. And if we are still closer towards the sun, we will be roasted. Barbecue. Or if we are away from the sun, in winter sometimes it is unbearable again. How it will be? So who has fixed the distance between the sun and the earth? We are, as a human being, as a scientist, we say sun is having linear motion, revolving around its axis. Earth is spinning around its axis, also it is going around the sun. Earth, if it is revolving, one rotation takes 24 hours. It takes 365 days to go around the sun. All this, that a thinker does it. That person who goes beyond science. I think it was Einstein. I don't know who it was. He said, where science ends, spirituality starts. Science can give an answer only to a certain extent. Beyond that, science can't give any answer. That's why it becomes philosophical. Philosophize. That doesn't mean you are evading the question. So, a human being is perceiver, human being is constituted of self, the Atman, and a perceiver, actor, feeler, thinker, and contemplator. And this is what we discussed in the previous class by saying 4 different personality layers. We don't have to do a PhD on this subject. You don't have to attain a doctorate on this subject. But if we are able to understand who we are, what we are, then in this electronic gadget world, a person is so eloquent, knows in and out each and everything in that electronic gadget. He is able to press the right one in order to fetch the right result. But a person is not able to relate with another human being. Very sad. If there has to be cordial relationship amongst human beings, a person should understand oneself first before understanding others. What sort of person am I? Am I, a more physical person, more emotional person, intellectual person, spiritual person? Accordingly, a person can relate with the world in a proper way. So this, understanding is important in every human being, preferably that person who is very young. From the young age, if the child is, inculcated with this thoughts and ideas, whether they take up to the study of scriptures, study of Vedanta is of a different question. Who is the perceiver? Who is the actor? What sort of emotions we are entertaining? I just touched upon greed. The other emotions human being we go through, entertain, are jealousy, lust, anger. So we will be in a position to identify, yes, I'm a very envious person, I'm a very lusty person. And in that young age, if a person is able to understand, see, for example, a person is talented in one field, is intelligent, but not able to govern one's emotion. Then in that initial stage of life itself, along with that talent, if the person is able to, if they are able to identify themselves, fine. Otherwise someone else can tell them, you have a particular weakness, you better be watch out. It's like taking guard. A precautionary measure. So when we are careful, then once bitten, twice shy. We take that attitude. So the person can become arrogant. So there are nowadays young ones who have tasted success in that young age. So to keep them stable, to keep them grounded, if this little knowledge is given to them, that what happens if a person is arrogant, what happens if a person is jealous. So these are all various small identification that that young one is, has to do it, then they are able to come up in life as a complete person, a grounded person, a rounded person. As Shakespeare beautifully puts it, uneasiness lies ahead, who wears the crown now? So automatically, when that success, and the person has tasted success, that ego, that superiority complex also come along with that person, without one's knowledge. So with this understanding, a person can maintain that objectivity. Then what happens is, the person is able to fine tune and spend more time on one's talent without getting into the pitfalls. Therefore, a person is able to pitch up a higher purpose. Yes, this is my talent and I will function, in this direction. This is my goal, and let me not become egoistic. Let me not get into that negative emotions. The person is able to be objective. The path ahead is clear. He is able to tread the path. And ultimately what happens is, little by little, the person is able to oblate each and every action, emotion, thoughts and ideas towards the purpose. Offer. And as the person keeps offering all actions towards, when I say action here, emotion and thoughts and ideas are also action. One is gross action, another one is subtle action. The person is able to offer to the ideal without any ego and egocentric desires. Then the desires reduce. As the person becomes more and more evolved spiritually, then the person is proceeding towards self-development, and in the long run, a person attains self-realization. And this is what two words we discussed last class: a yogi and a sannyasi. A yogi and sannyasi both are on the spiritual path to attain self-realization.